Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hello and welcome to the video wrap-up show for the Shrimp Tank podcast here in Seattle. I'm Dan Whedon and I'm joined by my co-host, Craig Swanson. We had a fascinating, fun, and brainy conversation today with our guest, Melina Palmer. You got to listen to the entire show. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Go to our website at www.shrimptankpodcast.com, Seattle, to get this and all of them.
Melina, this was a great episode. We got a lot out of this. I wanted you to kind of take us back a little bit. You had some comments to me because I'm onboarding a new employee, and you had some advice on basically just some tips for new employers who bring on those first 2 weeks of an employee, how we can really frame that for the best opportunity for them to succeed and for us to succeed.
Yeah. So with that, when you have a new employee, it's important to know that there are lots of habits and things changing, new information, lots of stress on the brain for both you and for them. And so to have some grace of knowing that things aren't going to be exactly the way that we want them to be, maybe, and we'll forget little things or whatever along the way. And we want to make it as much less stress for them as we can, and have some grace there. We also have a curse of knowledge when we have been in a company for a long time. And so there are things that we may be thinking with someone we're onboarding, that it's this burden of time that we're just stuck with them until they have learned enough to be as useful as we are, right? Because our brains are really programmed to see how much better we are than everyone else. But when we have that curse of knowledge, we don't see some things that might be glaring errors to other people who aren't in that way we've always done things, status quo with our businesses. And so knowing that that employee has what I like to call the blessing of the uninformed, that they're able to be looking at things and say, that's weird, or, well, why would you do it that way? And instead of getting kind of in your own way about, because this is how we do things and this is what it is, inviting them to be bringing things up and be part of that process and conversation also helps them to feel more ownership over the role and feel more comfortable. And then they're able to ask questions. I think in this, I also mentioned my least favorite phrase of all time, which is, does that make sense? And my husband is prone to saying this a lot. So I get to say, I love you people who say this and know that this is still a phrase we should stop saying, because it comes across really condescending, even though that's not your point. I know you're talking about you, but it doesn't feel that way to the person who hears it. So instead of, does that make sense, to ask, did I explain that well, is something that makes it more about you than it is something about them having to say, no, that doesn't make sense because I'm stupid. Please elaborate, right? Doesn't feel good, and can open it up so people are more likely to be willing to share and kind of set things off on the right foot.
Well, Melina, I'm making a commitment here in front of tens and tens of viewers, hopefully more than that I'm never going to say, does this make sense again? I'm going to extract that from all verbiage. Listen, in the podcast, and everybody's got to listen to the entire podcast. It's so good. You talked about that we make somewhere, give or take ish, 11 million decisions every second. I heard you correctly on that, right?
So it's that we actually make 35,000 decisions a day, and our subconscious brain can process 11 million bits of information per second.
Yep, 11 million bits, just a few, a couple less decisions. But as business owners, we feel probably overwhelmed at times, thinking we have so many decisions to make. And our brains, I know my brain can get really feeling like I'm going through the file folder and everything. Can you give some advice to those people, especially when we get overwhelmed, business owners, business leaders who feel like, man, we're making decisions all the time, how your brain best makes decisions?
Yeah. So with that, our brains get overwhelmed way faster than we think they should, for one. And we didn't really get to talk about this example on the show, but it's one of my favorites is, so there was a study that was done that people were asked to remember a number. So, got a number in an envelope and you go through a series of tasks. And then at the end, you have to say what your number was. For one half, they were given a 2-digit number. The others were given a 7-digit number, and you go through your tasks. And then you have the end of the time. One of the tasks along the way was to choose their snack, which was their gift for participating in the study. You get to pick which thing that you want. Those who were remembering the 2-digit number were a lot more likely to choose the healthy fruit salad as their snack. And those who were remembering the 7-digit number were much more likely to choose chocolate cake as their snack at the end. And we would like to think, it's just 5 extra digits and 7 is it's a phone number. We remember that all the time. But when you bog down that conscious processing, so like we said, the 11 million bits per second is the subconscious. Your conscious can do about 40 bits per second. So it gets bogged down so quick. Like if I told you your number's 12, and especially here in Seattle, that's an easy number to remember. So we're going to say your number's 12. A month from now, if I say, hey, what was that number? You could say, oh yeah, it was 12, right? You could remember that. If your number is 1265347, 1625347, that looks delicious. 123, right? Like we're not able to devote information. This is also where, if you've ever been driving to a new place and you have to turn down the radio while you're looking for the address.
I've done that.
Too much. We all have, because there's too much information coming in. So we're not really good at multitasking, even though we think that we are. We're not good at having lots of competing deadlines and holding information in our brains. So that's for one, is finding a way that you can get stuff out of that conscious processing place. Whether you like Trello or Stormboard or Monday or whatever, getting stuff out of your own thought processes all the time that it's running there is a good way to help with some of that overwhelm. And then just don't do, it seems like a dumb thing to say, but don't do unimportant work.
Don't do unimportant work.
Yeah.
That's great.
Stop doing things that are not important.
For no unimportant work.
You'd be surprised at how much unimportant work you're doing. Research has shown that over 60% of the work people do is deemed to be unimportant. So just following up on miscommunications and all sorts of stuff that's just not really moving the business forward, but is more busy work that feels a little bit more safe. So being more thoughtful about what we work on, what our goals are, what we're focused on, and only doing that important stuff also helps us to be a lot less overwhelmed.
That is fantastic. Well, Melina, thank you so much for being a guest on the Shrimp Tank. And for everyone watching, there was a 45 minutes packed with stuff like this in the full episode. But before we get to that, Melina, where can people go to find out more about you and find about your books?
Yeah. So my books are available everywhere that books are sold. So there's that. But you can also go to thebrainybusiness.com and you can find my books and podcasts and consulting, speaking, training, all the good stuff. And for your audience, going to thebrainybusiness.com/shrimp tank, you can actually get the first chapter of any of my books for free to be able to read, see if it's a fit for you. Check them out. thebrainybusiness.com/shrimp tank.
Fantastic. And thank you for that. And for everyone watching, make sure you check out the replays and listen to this episode at shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle. And go ahead and bookmark us in whatever you use to listen to podcasts. Apple, iHeartRadio, Cloudflare, SoundCloud, anywhere. And I don't think you can do it on Cloudflare. Anyway, and also make sure that you like us on all our social media pages, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
What Craig meant to say is we're ubiquitous. Just go find us. We're somewhere. So anyway, hey, Melina, thank you very much. Had a great time. We're going to want to have you back. Everybody, listen to her Brainy Business podcast. Go buy her books. She's fantastic. Craig, as always, thanks to you. Please do what Craig said. Like us on Facebook. We are live every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Pacific to live stream our next episodes. And our next show will be on November 9th. Please join us. Until we see you again, be healthy, be prosperous, have fun, and for Melina, be thoughtful. Because for right now, the shrimp is back in the tank. So long.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.